Center for Women Studies and NSS of Kaveri College for Women Autonomous, Regional Association of Women Studies. I welcome you all to the session. May I now request Dr. N. Murugeshwari, Professor, Department of Women Studies, Bharatidasan University, to render welcome address and to introduce our today's resource person. Welcome you, ma'am. Murugeshwari, ma'am, are you there, ma'am? Manimekalai, ma'am, whether am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, Neela.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, there was a call, so we can start, Neela.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Neela,
ma'am. I
yeah,
requested Murugeshwari, ma'am, to introduce the resource person, ma'am.
and welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will just formally welcome Dr. Suganta for this meeting, and I'm thankful to her for agreeing to be the resource person today. And
Yes,
she'll
ma'am.
be talking on gender and economy. And over to Dr. Murugeshwari.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Murugeshwari is there? It's not there? Dr. Murugeshwari? Okay, I think she hasn't been connected yet. Welcome to all the participants and the resource person today. And you already met her in the short-term course also. Some of you might have listened to her, and this is the second time she is joining for this month-long gender sensitization program. Dr. Suganta is the Treasurer, Regional Association for Women Studies, and in fact we are jointly hosting this program with Regional Association for Women Studies. And she is currently the head of the Department of Economics, Mary Grove College, Madurai, very renowned college, wherein this women studies has been there long back. Even UGC hasn't started initiating women studies centers in the academic universities or colleges. Lady Grove College has been having this as an important component thanks to that college, and that capacity Dr. Suganta got trained in women studies for a long, though she belongs to economics, and she was also the director, Center for Women Studies, CGC Center for Women Studies. So we work together in several capacities as Director of Women Studies and also trainers in the capacity building for women managers in higher education, and in the Regional Association for Women Studies, we also edited a book on violence against women. And Dr. Suganta has been, so she had she has more than 30 years of experience, teaching experience, and she also served there in Marine University, a Central University, as control of examinations, which was much appreciated. Due to her personal reasons, she had to move back to Madurai. Otherwise, she would have been the Vice Chancellor by this time. I wish that she will be Vice Chancellor sometime later. And also, she has been associated with undertaking research, and she did the general auditing for the Madurai Kamaraj University, and she has been in various committees and in advisory committees of Center for Women Studies and Board of Studies in both economics and women studies, and has been a sought after person to this webinar, this COVID hours also. She has been serving as a resource person for various webinars. And so she will, on the one side, she's basically an economic teacher. On the other hand, she also specialized in women studies. So she would be the right person to talk on this area of gender and economy. And I welcome all on behalf of all the participants and also the organizing department. And I wish to also place our sincere thanks to all the participants who are continuously participating, and I should say that this is the second week. We are commencing the second week. 1 week has gone, and we are going to have renowned resource persons in the days ahead. So I welcome once again Dr. Suganta. Now over to Dr. Suganta.
Thank you, Dr. Mani Meghlai, for those very kind words. At the outset, let me congratulate Bharadasan University, Dr. Mani Meghlai, Dr. Murugeshwari, Dr. Shubha, and her entire team. And I'd also like to congratulate Kaveri College, Dr. Sujata, Dr. Neela, and their team, of course, with Roz, who have been one whole month program. It's not an easy thing, but they are doing an admirable job. So, with these few words, I would like to start my presentation. Um, Okay, I'd like to start my presentation with a small real-time story that I would like to share with you. Am I audible, please? Can somebody respond?
Ma'am, audible, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So
Yeah,
this is
you are
about,
audible.
thank you. This is about these three women, Indian women. You know, they often used to interact and talk to each other about a lot of things. And they all found one thing common about themselves. They were in different fields. And there was one thing that was common. They all
Yes,
of them
ma'am.
share. Pardon?
Sugandha ma'am, sorry for the
Yeah,
interruption, ma'am.
yeah.
You have to open your PPT, ma'am.
I'll tell you when will you be doing it or I should do it?
It's your choice, ma'am.
Why don't
What
you
can
do
we
it?
do, ma'am? Yes, ma'am, I
Yeah.
will do it, ma'am. I will do it,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So it so happened that the three ladies found that they were this life that they were leading, successful life. Somewhere down the line, they were truly inspired by their mothers. And they were sharing the thoughts that our mothers who are not well educated, they are not employed, they don't have all those glittering things that usually go along with, you know, women who aren't into the open spaces and things like that. But they were so inspirational in their lives, and therefore they started wondering, we admire our mothers for what they've done to us. Do our girls also admire us? So they went and talked to two of them, talked to their 18-year-old daughters, and one was a 12-year-old girl. So they talked to them and said, whom do you think is your role model? Whom do you think will be, you know, somebody whom you would like to admire? So these girls came out with Bollywood actresses. They talked about some sports personalities and things like that. Okay. So then they were like, you know, Bollywood actors, they're already well known, sports personalities, they're well known and things like that. So then they thought, okay, not only our daughters, let's go around randomly asking girls and women of different age groups, whom do you think, you know, is somebody whom you can get inspired by, whom you admire as a role model. And this conversation got extended to a lot of women, and they really found that uh, uh, the women were the girls, the women, they were like, you know, talking only about those very famous personalities, particularly in the film industry. So what happened to the others? And therefore this brought a idea into them, and they said, now we need to make a list of women, not in the Bollywood or in the Collywood or somebody who's already very famous, but somebody who's really doing wonderful things. So they said, let's start with 50 women and find out what are they doing in different diverse fields. And this turned out to become not just 51 women, but a book. And the book is named The Dot That Went for a Walk. Okay, so they themselves published it. The first publication went on to find 4,000 buyers. So women from diverse fields, what are they doing to this country, to this world, to the humanity, to the people at large? So with this true story, I'd like to start my talk on gender and economy. Maybe at times I'll be a little technical, but it's all right. In case we have doubts, we can you go to the next slide, please, Neela? So this is about, I think I need to tell a little bit of economics, gender economics. it's when we talk about economics, it's a very traditional subject, yes, and we know all about it. But gender economics is something that it's a new way of thinking about how you can do better with the background of gender and culture. When I'm talking about gender and culture, because there may be something that is positively pushing, or it may also have a negative push. So when we talk about gender economics, we are talking about how gender influences economics, or how economic decisions influence gender. This may sound a little technical. How gender is influencing economics, in the sense when you're talking about how men and women get affected by policies, etc., differently. In the sense, when we talk about in economics, we talk about something called work-leisure ratio. So we in colleges and universities, we say you need to teach for 10 hours, 8 hours, 18 hours, 16 hours. This is because a human being can work for so many hours by and large, and therefore a teacher can teach for 16 hours in a college or 18 hours in a college, and plus the additional activities that they do in terms of preparation, question paper, evaluation. So this is how it is. So the rest of the time is leisure. So how much is the work and leisure ratio a human being can work? So that is the A task context in which ILO and everywhere they talk about an 8-hour working hours. Now, does that same thing apply to women? No, because the work-leisure ratio for women is they work in their offices, their colleges, their schools, and their organizations, but they come back home, they still continue working. So this work-leisure ratio of 8 hours is not really true. Then can we look at this work-leisure ratio from a different angle? That's one way how gender, economic decisions influence gender, or gender influence. Another way we can look at in from the policy perspective is, say, for example, this Narega scheme where they're paying the women 100 and odd rupees per day and all that. Now they've said because of the lot of leakages or corruption that's happening in the payment, they want to do money transfers. So now the money is transferred into the bank account of these women who are enrolled under the Narega scheme. But from the gender perspective, what is happening once it goes into the bank account, it is much more easier for the men to control the money that is there. Instead of she going to the bank and withdrawing, it is he goes and withdraws. Earlier, she used to get cash in hand. So even if there were toughs and tigs between the husband and wife, she takes back some money and buys food, and she's able to provide to her children and family. But now the control is more with the men. Now you will have to look at this money transfer aspect from a gendered perspective. So this is how we mean when we say any policy decision, how does it influence the gender? Next, please. So economics, a new way of thinking. A new way of thinking. So what we from the feminist economists or gender economics perspective is, next please, Neela? Yeah. So a next generation of economic transformation. We want to look at what is work from home, even work from home. What is it to both men and women? How are we going to look at this new? So we're going to now dissect this entire curriculum or the gender, not only from the economics point of view, but we need this new discourse will have to take into account economics, gender, sociology, psychology. Behavioral economics is a very important aspect. So what we are now doing in gender economics is trying to look at the entire thing, what women are doing in the economy, to the economy, and for the economy. Next, please. Neela? Yeah. So basically, when we say economics, people probably think economics is like microeconomics, macroeconomics. But what is really economics? Economics, the term economics is a Greek term, and it simply means management of household. So you're managing the house, and that has extended since our household activity. We lived in a very self-sufficient, small communities, it was okay to say management of household. So I share milk with this person and he shares his rice with me, and we exchange barter system. Slowly, as the needs, requirements, communities, it's very interesting to know when Plato had written not about economics, but he was talking about communities, and he said any community should limit itself to, very interestingly, 40 members in the community, and in case you have more members, make it a new community. Now this is what probably he meant. Now that the economy or the country or the distribution has become so vast, you really are lost. The supply chain is really lost. So management of household, management of community, management of our small society is what economics meant. So it meant allocation of whatever resources we have, the production of it and the distribution of it. But gradually, as economies expanded, we had to depend on the markets. And the market mechanism became, the price became the tool of this market mechanism. So anything that is priced is valued. Next, please. Anything that is valued will have importance. Right. So, but markets, now the market that we have in this society is so much of asymmetry in the market, so much of lack of information. You want to buy tomatoes, one shop says 35 rupees, another shop says 50 rupees. If you had proper information, well, yes. There are some informations which are pertinently given as, yes, this is what it is. For example, we were in our neighborhood, there was a house construction that was going on. It was a community hall construction. So what happened, it was a Christian community. They were building a big site for their, different purposes. So what happened was when that Kottanar Sittal, the workers, the men and the women workers came, they were a team. So they were probably husband and wives, and they were working in teams. So these people, they said, we're going to give same wages to all of them, the men and the women. We all know that the women, Sittal as we call, women get around 300, 400 and so on, and the men get around 600, 700, so on. But these people decided we're going to give common wages. And you know what? It was interestingly surprising that the men folk, they objected to it. They said, how can you give the women same wages as you giving to us? So these people were perplexed. They said, what's happening? She's your wife. This is your family. And if she's going to get some more money, are you not happy? They said, no, we are not happy. You can't give my wife as much wages as I'm getting. Now you see this asymmetry of information, and the acceptance of this asymmetry of information makes it so typically, an economy which is unbalanced. So now we really need to know, what are the women doing in the economy? What are they contributing? Are they contributing? In fact, in India, they're saying labor force participation, or women in the workforce. Okay, women in the workforce are not more than 26 to 27%. If there are 100 women, only 26 to 27 women are actually contributing to the economy, is what the data, NSSO data and other relevant data are saying. But I think we need to now quickly look in. Can I have the next slide, please? Look into the next. Okay, women are only 26% out of 100. That means nearly 74, 73% of the women are sitting at home doing nothing. This is a big question mark. I always like to, because this is widely talked about, discussed with data and all that in the formal and non-formal, all that only 26% or 27% women are in the labor force. Rest of the women are sitting at home. This is a very big question. Okay. Now, technically speaking, what are the women doing? They are involved in production. They were working in factories, they're working in agriculture, they're working as teachers, they're working as so many things. So they are in reproduction, which is a non-disputable fact. Okay. The next non-disputable fact is they are reproducing, which is even more important. If women are not going to reproduce, my dear friends, mankind is slowly going to fade away. And it's very true, my dear friends. In fact, when I went to Switzerland, there'll be one house here, the density of population is so less. The other house will be so far away. And there are only older men and women there. In the area where we were located when we went there, you won't believe it, there was just one shop. And there was a elderly couple who were running the shop. So we went in, we were talking to them and all that. They were so happy to see human beings, I guess. You walk on the streets, they'll be hello, they'll come, and they're so happy to see people around, So I was asking them, what do you sell? How much do you sell? What is the level of transaction in your shops? They say, per day, if I can sell one transaction happens, that's great. There are no people to come and buy. So if women decide that we are not going to reproduce, it's going to be an issue. So reproduction is so important. And the third one is social reproduction, which is so important. What is social reproduction? From the birth of the child, the family, maintaining the family, taking care of the family, taking care of the children, taking care of the elderly. If your family is well set, you will have an excellent career. You're able to walk up the ladder of your career, but you will have everyday tugs and tips in your family. Imagine how much of productivity, efficiently you can work in your workplaces. So social reproduction or the development of the community, this is what women are doing. And if we are going to say only 26% of women are in the workforce and rest of us all sitting at home, well, we need to reconsider that. We'll come to that a little later. Neela, next slide, please. Yeah. So in economics, generally, like in physics, if you say work, then what does it mean, work? Work means, you push something or your displacement with the force that you put and all that. But in economics, when we say work, if somebody is giving you a monetary reward, it is work. Otherwise, it's not work. For example, today I'm taking a session. I'm not going to be monetary. So probably this is not work. But let me tell you, I spent a couple of days sitting and doing all this work. So let us understand that women are engaged both in productive work as well as, paid work as well as unpaid work. So there is a very clear-cut segregation or division of labor in the market economy. Where I'm unpaid, it's very clear. Women have to do the household work, they have to cook, they have to clear all that, etc., etc. But in the market work, when you go out and sell your labor, there is a big distinction. And that is becoming a major concern for all. World Bank also is now calculating if the unpaid work is now given valuation, how much of increase in gross domestic income will be. Next, please. So this is how we are looking. Okay. So another thing that's important, because now there's a lot of focus on the unpaid work that the women are doing, whether they are growing vegetables in their garden or they're taking care of their children, they're taking care of their neighbors' children, which is so important. Let me tell you, I was visiting one slum. Okay, in that slum, I was having an interview with these women. So there was this woman sitting with her small baby and feeding milk. So I was talking to her, and suddenly in the neighbor, it's a small hutments, neighbor, there was one cradle, kind of the cloth cradle. There was a baby there and started crying. So she put her baby down. She went to the next door, and she picked up that baby and she started feeding. I said, whose baby is this? She said, this is my neighbor's baby. She's gone to do domestic work, and she's left her baby. It's crying, so I'm going to feed it. What are you going to value when this mother is giving her mother's milk to the neighbor's baby? What kind of valuation can you give? So this unpaid work, there is a lot of interest, lot of economists, sociologists, psychologists are now working on it, but the scarcity of data. Nobody would have thought, what will I value when the neighbor lady is giving, feeding milk. You don't even know what is the kind of unpaid work that women are doing at home. So there is big scarcity of data to understand and apprehend and actually value and measure the unpaid work. Another big concern in this gender and economy is, men and women are looked upon as non-competing group. I'm a college teacher. He's also a college teacher. We both are not competing. He has a different set of ways of working. The women have a different set of ways of working. That's how it is assumed. So we are not even looked at, even that construction site. She's not even looked at as a competing. You are at a different level and I'm at a different level. Though both of them are in the construction side. So this making men and women non-competing has a very big implication on what the women are contributing to the economy. Next, Neela. So, what women are doing? First and foremost, women in agriculture. There are more than 60 to 70% of women who are engaged in agriculture as employees, but they also work in their own lands, which is not taken into consideration. So I think this, we all know much about it, so I won't go too much into it. Women as caretakers, both at home. It's a huge area of caretaking, is a huge area. Caretaking simply doesn't mean if somebody is sick. Even in this pandemic time, we find that the young children are having online classes. It's the mothers who are sitting with the babies. So now they have an extra task taking care of the family and all that. From next week, we are also going to have online classes. So these young mothers were saying, oh my God, do I sit with my son and daughter, or do I now take online classes? How am I going to manage? It's going to be a big affair and things like that. So when we say caretaking, different circumstances, different situations are bringing newer and newer challenges to women. What are we going to do to measure for it? Next. Women as educators, not only at home, but elsewhere also. So because the crowding effect of women, particularly in primary education, is so high, of course it's dwindling as it goes on. But anyway, women as educators have a very important role. Let me go on to the next. Next, please. For want of time, I'll just, okay. Now, where are the women? So women are both in the formal and in the informal sector, but the crowding in is mostly in the informal sector, in the unorganized sector. So here I have a small data. Median female share in the global workforce is 45%, and in India it's 26%. Just look at India's status. Though I differ or disagree with this data, India ranks 120 among 131 countries in female labor force participation. Okay, but what are women doing? Okay, women both in the formal and informal labor are not just going and doing the work and coming. They can transform the community, okay, into just not being at the receiving end, but a form of transformation which brings about entire change in the way the communities function, the way the societies function, the way I remember when we were doing a program, I had this Madurai, I'm from Madurai. We had the mayor who was a woman who was very less educated because this was reserved for women's constituency. Her husband, placed her and she won the elections and she became the mayor. The husband was doing the major role. But then when we went and started having discussions, she started saying, okay, you women people, you're doing this. Why don't you do a help? All the women in this area, what they're doing is they dump all their sanitary ware and things like that into the drainage, and the drainage gets clogged. The men were not thinking about it. So cleaning the drainage, sanitary workers, that was what was important. But she said, what the women are doing is they're dumping all their sanitary material into the thing, and it's becoming clogged. It's getting clogged. So not unclogged. She said, now I will sponsor this program. You go from colony to colony, create awareness about how you need to dispose your sanitary pads. So we were saying, see, when a woman is there, she's able to look at from a different perspective. She may not be educated, but by and large, she's able to understand from the gendered perspective. So women can change the economy from a relatively autonomous society to become a participant in the national economy. Next, please. So women are doing major things, but they're not coming out. Okay. So India was one of the first countries to give its women the. Before that, we have the highest number of women professionals in the world. India has more female doctors, surgeons, scientists, and professors than even United States. Okay, many women have emerged from experiments in their kitchen and have become full-time businesswomen, successful businesswomen, particularly in the biochemical and pharmaceutical industries. You would find women doing amazing things. Let's not only talk about Biocon or Indra Nooyi. There is n number of small entrepreneurs, women doing small things in a cottage industry levels, small scale industry levels, medium industry levels. So all these women seem so invisible. They're just not accounted for. Next, please. So women are doing wonderful things. Next, please. Yeah. So after this Panchayat Raj 73 and 74 Amendment Act, the reservation for women has brought millions of women into the governance, and they are creating silent revolution, particularly in the rural front. Rural development, still we are depending on rural. How much of urbanization, we still fall back on the rural development. And my dear friends, let me tell you, women are contributing to the development of rural economy. Okay, and this whole revolution of self-help groups, the financial inclusion scheme that India has brought. Okay, they are running so many projects which are not accounted for. They're not even, recorded in many places. Wonderful work. I've met more than thousands of self-help groups. Amazing women. Amazing women. These women were women who were afraid to even talk outside. Today they are doing amazing things to their villages, to their women. There is this one village which was very backward. So these self-help group women, they joined together, they became a force, and they said, in our village, Yenga village, in our village, there's going to be no men or women who are going to smoke or drink. There are going to be, all the girls are going to go to schools. And they've all decided our village will be like this clean, our village will be like this. So they have a list of norms. And I took my students, so they also raise every day 1 rupee. So they have a collective fund, which is for common. So when we went there, they gave us tea and biscuits. We said, oh man, their houses, small hutments, they were so beautifully maintained. They said, how did you do it? They said, we all joined together and decided this is how our houses, small houses are going to be. So all our students, we all went into their house and said, wow, look how they maintained it. So every small aspect. Then our students asked, how is it that nobody is going to smoke or drink? So they considered and said, yes. But there are a handful who do it, but they would not dare do it in the village. They will go out into the, other nearby villages, do small things. And when they come back clean and clear. We are not able to do it 100%, it's all right, but we still will do it. Self-help groups in their own way are emerging, and given appropriate opportunity, they're going to really take over in a big way. Next, please. Next, please, Neela. Yeah. It's confusing. No country in this world has actually attained gender equality. This disequilibrium exists everywhere. And the closest is Iceland and then Norway, but still they're around 82%. It's like that. So in what way are they unequal? Even such countries who look for equality, their women are paid 24% less than the man in comparable jobs across regions, across sector, globally. Unfortunate, this is really unfortunate. Next, please. Yeah. Okay. So in India, when we look in India, as per these statistics, it says women's contribution to India's GDP is meager 18%. This is again a very, to me, it's a very question. It's a statistics given by the government. So I don't know if we can, but I'm sure there are a lot of researchers, a lot of young researchers, senior researchers, faculty who can now look into this in a bigger way and find out in what way can we find out measuring methodologies and measurements for women's contribution. How do we account for it? What kind of statistical tools we can adopt to incorporate the unpaid work that women are doing, particularly in the unorganized sector. Okay, so in the unorganized sector, women are definitely paid, the wage gap is very high, women are definitely paid very less, and when women are paid very less for the work that they are doing, then you would definitely understand that their contribution is not actually measured in the right terms. So we as persons interested in gender have a very big role. We really need to know how do we now identify what is the contribution of both men and the women. Next, please. Next, please. So you see, things are also changing in a big way, in the sense that, till the last census, the government did not even consider female-headed households. What are female-headed households? Where the men are either not there, or they've left the family, or she's widowed, or he's just lost. So in many families, they've gone for a job and all that, and they never come back. So the woman doesn't even know what her status is. Is she a widow? Is she separated? Is she divorced? Or he may come someday. So this kind of a statistics was not taken all these census. Only in the last census, for the first time in India, they considered how many households are female-headed households, where only women are there. Only after taking that. Otherwise, these women were finding it very difficult to even apply for ration card, because the ration card head of the household, it has to be a man. If it is a woman, then she's dependent on the father or the brother. So her name will have to come, her and her children's name will have to come in one of those ration cards. I have a colleague, she chose not to get married, so she's a spinster. So, over the years, first she didn't apply for ration card. Then she said, oh, ration card has much more meaning now, of course, as Aadhaar has. So ration card is a necessity, because you want to apply for driving license, they're asking for ration card. So she went and applied. So they said, we can't give you a ration card. Why should you need a ration card? She said, I'm a separate individual. I'm working in a college and I have my own home, and I need a ration card. No, you can't get a ration card. You can apply, your brother or your father can apply and get your name included, but you can't get a ration card. Then she had to really run from pillar to post. So even these small things, make a world of difference. But the census, now we know, when the census report came out, we know that around 11% of households are female-headed households. It could be a little more. Now it would be much more that the women are. Okay. So we make less than 24% of parliamentarians. But in India, it's better, much better, because of the 73 and 74 amendment. We have the Panchayati Raj system, where, of course, many states have not yet gone in for the next elections. Nevertheless, it's very, very interesting to know about 153 countries have laws that discriminate against women economically. She can't take up this job. She is not allowed to drive. Especially the Middle East and many other small countries have legal, constitutionally assigned that women will not be able to take up such jobs. In fact, in 18 countries, husbands have the right to stop women from taking up employment. It is his legal right to say you need not go for a job. I know in Saudi Arabia and other countries, many of the doctors, they are not permitted to practice their profession. What a colossal waste of resources, you see. So all this, when you include, you'd be amazed. There are a lot of women in India also. For my family, I will not do this. I will not take up promotions. I will not go for transfers. If I'm transferred, well, then I'm not going to take up. So all this underemployment has to be accounted for. Next, please. So women in the economy, how are they? So now the UN is the UNO, which has been working for a lot of these aspects. This time it has come out with a new future generation, not only for the present, for the future generation also. So they are demanding equal pay, equal share of unpaid care and domestic work. So both, all of the family members have to share the unpaid domestic work, end sexual harassment and violence against women and girls, provide healthcare service that respond to their needs. What is their need? That's important. I know of my own friend, her father is tested positive for COVID, and so also the daughter and all. So the mother says, they've decided, the family, she will not go for the test because she may test positive. So she has to provide food and other things. They decided, I said, go to the hospital and hospitalize yourself, they'll provide you everything. No. I don't know what they discussed. They come out and say, we're going to be home quarantined. My mummy is not going to take the test. Okay. And she will be making all the provisions for the family. Because during quarantine, they all have to be provided special care. This is a well-educated family. Father is in a central government job. The children are well-educated, postgraduate educated. Okay. And this is how they decide. Healthcare services respond to their needs. Okay. So equal participation in political life and in decision making in all areas of life. So can I make a decision? I don't know why the mother decided that she can do this, she can somehow withstand this COVID, or she's taking medicines without doctors. I don't know what was it, because when I started talking to them, it was like, they were not very welcoming about it. So, well, this is how, so what is it that we are now looking for? We are looking for not to say women are okay in unpaid services, or in informal sector. They are everywhere. They are working and contributing so much to the GDP. Every country has decided or has assigned that if the entire women's work is taken into account, the GDP of all economies will almost double, which is an amazing thing. In India, they're saying, if you take the women's account for the women's work, our GDP will immediately increase to 18%. But another question, another issue that I think we need to discuss is having women at the grassroots level or making them work at the periphery. Is that all right, or is that you want to make a change in the entire economy, in the entire society? You really need women at the top level. You need women to work not only at the bottom level, but also at the decision-making level, be it in political or in organizations. The proof of this is when in 2008, we had the recession from USA, which also trickled down to all other economies. The World Bank did a study. Which are the companies that were really affected? Many companies had to be shut down. Many were badly affected, but there were quite a few companies which withstood the weather of this hard weather of recession in the USA. So in USA, they took a number of companies which really, withstood this recession period. So what they really found out towards the end was all those companies, multinational companies, which had women in their board, in their financial committees, at the top level, middle and top level, those companies somehow were able to withstand this. Whereas companies which were very much male dominated, totally male dominated, had faced bad weather. Whereas these companies withstood, came out of flying colors, and are doing well. This COVID period also, the 5 countries where the women are the heads, these 5 countries are able to, the latest data says, able to withstand minimize the number of COVID patients, and they are actually able to manage this pandemic in a much better manner. So women are not just contributing in a small way, they are contributing in a very big way, starting from the family to the economy. And I think it's not that they're not contributing or contributing less. It's only that they're not measured appropriately. They're not taken into account appropriately. So what is the need of this hour? What is it that we want? So we want what all of us are now, people with interest in gender and feminist ideas. What do we want? We want a gendered approach to all economic theories, the methods in which we are studying it, and the economic and public policy. Even the debates have to include many more things, right? So both theoretical and empirical research studies. It could be either small case studies or cross-country studies within Asia, within Europe, or across regions. You need to make comparisons because there are a lot of similarities. There are a lot of similarities with developed countries and developing countries, African countries. Sometimes we even probably think that Indian women or African women are much more empowered in the sense of financial understanding or the work that they do in the agriculture field or as educators. Their contribution probably is much, much more. In USA, Hillary Clinton, in spite of her, winning in many of the regions, could not win the election for whatever the reason is. So how democratic any election is for that matter when it comes to gender. So the need of the hour is that we change our approach to understand what is happening in the economy. How is it happening in the economy? Why is it happening in the economy? The whys of it is so important. MSME, Ministry of Micro, Medium and Small Industries, it is offering so much loan to women with subsidy. My dear friends, there are no takers, in spite of the government giving offers. Why of it? What is wrong with this? What is wrong with the cultural, social, behavioral setup? Next. So, I've just listed out a very few things that probably some of us can take it in a small way as studies. Gender distribution of time use. How are we using both the men and the women, paid and unpaid work, gender stratification in education, in the labor market, social reproduction, care. Now, I'm seeing, very few places, the men have opted to come out of their jobs when the babies are born, and the women are going for their jobs. Later on, they catch up with their careers. So, social reproduction, care provision, family policies, all this we need to relook on this. So, global care chains, because it's becoming global, migration, and women's agency. It could also be women's agency in terms of saying, why are you opening Tasmak or this government-run liquor shops? Women become powerful agencies. They all join together. You don't get water, they will block the road. They will block the road and say, okay. So there's strong women agency where they're able to, actually come out with community changes in the community. We know of success stories of so many women who were able to close down the Tasmak shops because it's a residential area, or because there are schools near that area. But unfortunately, my friends, it is the same women who are not able to have control over their bodies when their husbands demand it. They are not able to use family planning methods because the husbands don't want it. So women's agency from a community perspective, social choices from the social choices as well as individual personal choices. How are we going to understand this? So gender difference in behavioral aspects. The role of gender norms, cultures, and institutions which govern as a community, as a group, and as an individual. What say I may have as a group may not be what say I have at home. Okay, so ultimately, all this, if it is not going to be reflected in the micro and macroeconomic policies, financial, particularly globalization, and now the post-pandemic. I truly believe that the post-pandemic period, the pandemic and the post-pandemic period, I think women are going to have great opportunities provided, they are given a little bit of space to work on. The health workers, large numbers of them are women, but the economic opportunities that are opening up in small ways for women, women have to now take it up. Small studies of this kind or support of this kind by agencies, by the government, by the NGOs is going to really pave way for women to take over equally. It's not that women need to take over men. It's not that. It's like, there's a cycle, there's a front wheel, there's a back wheel. And if you're going to really overoil the front wheel and take care of it, or the back wheel and take care of it all, and just ignore the front wheel, the cycle is not going to move fast. So the men and the women have to jointly together work to make this country, make the world, make the economy, flourish, come out of this pandemic. And the post-pandemic period is going to be a big challenge. And when men and women together join together and work on this, it's going to be an amazing overcoming of the pandemic period. Thank you very much. Questions are welcome.
Madam.
Yes, sir.
I am Dr. B. Gopal Singh, economics.
Yes, sir.
You have very well said that the calculation of the unpaid work,
yes, sir,
not done properly.
Yes,
you have
sir.
mentioned that there should be a strategy.
Yes, sir.
There is data, but there is no strategy to calculate the unpaid workers' contribution. We call it as the real wages.
Yes, sir.
That is not been, as you said, we have got a Valuers Association of India, which values the assets.
Okay.
But the contribution of women is not properly taken into consideration.
Okay, sir.
And you also very well said that the money is well managed by women than men.
Yes.
Mainly
Yes,
because
sir.
women may not be good investors, but they are very good managers of the handling of funds. Because
Yes,
the
sir.
household, what economics says, the household management, it started from women only. That's
Yes.
just given through the what is called as the self-help groups, which have made
Yes.
a revolution.
Yes,
And
sir.
whatever you said, it has to be accepted. And in a lighter way, I have things to tell everybody. See, who is very strong, men or women? Take example, she, SH is she. Without she, there is no he. Mistress. Without
Yes.
there is no mistress. Lady. Lad is not there without lady. Women. Woman. Without woman, there is no man. Madam. Without madam, not madam. So it has to be taken into consideration that the contribution of women is to a very great extent GDP calculation. Our GDP calculation is not right, madam, as you said. We should
Yes.
take into consideration the unpaid services also. And we should have a mechanism to calculate the contribution which has not been paid. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, sir. We totally agree with you, sir. probably it is the responsibility of economists and the organization that you were talking about. We need to try out and evolve different ways of measuring. Our methodologies have to change. Even the not NSS, our data collection, the way that we are doing it has also to be improvised.
CSO, NSSO, RBI, and
Yes.
departments, collection of data. As you said, they are not doing a very technical aspect. Even not in our country, even in the world as a whole, no theory has been developed. As you said, there is a need for having a strategy to have the calculation of these unpaid services. Thank you, madam.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Any other comments that you would like to?
Neela, there are some questions there on the chat boxes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you can read out,
No
Madam.
question, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, women got quota, but implementation is very poor.
Okay. What is the question, Neela?
Although we have reserved, but yet they are not free to take decision.
Yeah. Yes, yes. There is a small percentage of quota for women, but I think we need to go beyond looking for quotas. I think you can't solely depend on quotas, probably except in governance. Looking for quotas all the time may not help. So we have to also upgrade ourselves, take up the challenge, and for us, for women, going into the workforce and successfully making a career is definitely a big challenge. Okay. And therefore, we have to also upgrade. We can't all the time wait for someone to, push us, the government all the time, or somebody pushing us. A little bit of push is good, but we know now things are different and we need to work towards it. Our challenges are great, but yes, so also our willingness to take up our challenges. So that's one thing that I really believe so. In political arena, yes, I think a little more of push, especially, even national parties have only around 10% of women as primary members. Then how do you think that women are going to become, leaders? So the political parties have to now open up and include more women, not just as a vote bank, but more than a vote bank. They have to come out, and give opportunities, trainings, skill training. Now, the skill training program that India's central government is bringing out, it can focus by and large on women also. So that kind of, upgrading women and training them would definitely help. And maybe after that, MSME and such facilities can be availed by women. So I think women have it in them. Given that the self-help group is the best, they were just given an opening and opportunity. I'm amazed the kind of work these women are doing. They are out at it. And now many, whether it is marriages, whether it's functions, you'll find self-help women coming and doing maybe small work, but yes, they're contributing. They are coming out of their homes. When I met a group of self-help group women near a village, you know what they were saying? Amma, we've never come out of our homes. We've never come out of our village. This is the first time when we joined the self-help group, we were invited to go to Chennai. First time we put powder, we went to Chennai, we were in Doordarshan, and we did makeup and we talked in front of a camera, and it was like we've never had it before. There was this lady who does a lot of masala making and all that, she used to sell in the self-help group sales and all counter. And she was selling some kind of fish masala or something. I said, no, I don't buy all that. She said, no, you can make it for potato. She was forcing me. I said, okay, poor lady, she looks little tired and haggard and poor, so let me buy it. I was like, out of sympathy, I bought it. The masala was
Sugandha, there are
outstanding.
other questions also.
Oh, sorry.
Please,
Yeah,
apply time
yeah, yeah,
is,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And the other question is, do we really think we need more reservation?
Reservation. To some extent, yes, we need reservations, but we can't bank on reservations all the time. We need to, equip ourselves sufficiently to meet the competition and challenges. I was also telling that men and women are non-competing groups. That's very sad. We have to upgrade and come. So, reservation to some extent, yes, but not
Yes, ma'am.
completely.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, another question, ma'am. Ma'am, we talk about gender equality. Then, why is it that women are given 32% reservation? I feel it is this providing of reservation that makes us women feel we are a weaker section. In this perspective, justifiable.
33% reservation, it means that the critical minimum number for voting for any of the project programs or whatever. So if we don't have even that critical minimum number in governance, then whatever policy program schemes that we are bringing may not favor both women and men. That is why we talk about 33% reservation. When we are able to compete equally, I think that can be removed in the due course of time, when we find both men and women are equally participating. But for starters, yes, we need women.
Yes. How to
I just
increase?
supplement, can I? I just
Yes,
supplement. In fact, I have thoroughly explained the other day the gender equity and equality and the historical disadvantage, whether it is the women or the other sections of the population, the SC/ST, who had been historically disadvantaged, and you have to come to a level playing field. Till then, you have to have the reservation. So I thoroughly justified also for the reservation. It is not to go, and as Dr. Sugata pointed out, we need a critical mass. Till then, we have to. So the younger generation got confused with the reservation, and I thoroughly explained that also. I reiterate that the reservation has to be there to compensate for your historical disadvantage. Your means the particular section of the population which really fail to have equal opportunities and equal resource endowment, etc., and they are being given now in order to compensate for one in one particular section you have been the fourth generation reader. For us, in one particular section it is only first generation. How you can equate yourself? And I agree with that you have to emerge as competing force equally to women, I mean men, but at the same time you have to have also the push. That is the reason why we have the reservation. But I don't advocate that it has to go for, on and on. Till you reach the critical mass, you have to. Yeah, thank you. Sorry to
Yes, ma'am.
interrupt. Dr. Suganta, please. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
what we are
Yes.
see, for example, in political parties, even the primary membership is not more than 10% at the national level. Congress Party, BJP. So you need a women force. So until women, how many of our women, even doing political science, consider joining political party as a profession? We don't look at it that way. So until that time, this has to go on. And in due course, when both men and women are equally working, this is a very difficult area. We look at it very easily because we're able to vote. Let me tell you, my friends, in USA, when it got its independence, it took 100 years for women to fight and get the right to vote. I'm not saying right to stand for election. Women were not even given the right to vote in USA. It took them more than 100 years. So that is a kind of, status. So in India, it's much better probably. But still, you need women to actively participate in decision-making process. There are a lot of women working as teachers. How many of them are vice chancellors? There are a lot of women working in multinational companies. How many of them are CEOs? Those questions, not because they're not efficient, not because they're not competing, but because they're not even considered for it, for those positions. There we need to support women. Any other question?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. The another question. This is a question by Gagandeep Kaur. I belong to Punjab, but mostly women are not aware about reservation in Panchayat Raj. What will best initiative to improve the status of women in politics?
Yeah. So politics as a occupation or profession is the most, unbecoming kind of a profession for women. But I think more awareness, more understanding, more this kind of programs, will help women to understand that. But if reservation is there, you can't ask a man to stand for the election. If the constituency is reserved for a woman, only a woman can stand for in that constituency. A man can't stand. So that way it is there. In due course of time, this change, such changes are not revolutionary; they're evolutionary. They can only evolve. It can't happen in, blink an eye and next day it's there. Even if the government is giving reservation, people may not be takers. So it has to evolve over a period of time. That's why we need this women's studies. As a discipline, women's studies becomes a catalyst for transformation. And therefore, in Punjab, I think there are quite a few universities and colleges which are having women's studies. There are NGOs which work on, at the grassroots level. So creating awareness, creating a sense of the perspective, a change in the perspective is the answer, because it can only evolve, not, become a revolution.
Yes, ma'am. The another question raised by Mardubandi sir. Now, women's side only willingness came for divorce. The case percentage increased. Any reason?
Yes, this is not only because of the woman or only because of the man. I think the cultural context of how a man is expected, a role expectation of a man, and the cultural context of a role expectation of a woman is changing, and the new role expectations do not match. So therefore, the man is still thinking, okay, my wife should be the typical, Indian woman who's giving unpaid care services in the best possible manner. It's not his fault. That's what the society has taught him. Okay, and this woman, she is confused because now they are telling you're educated, you're well educated, and you are in a job, you're earning sometimes even more than the husband. So why are you slogging in the kitchen all the time? And she's not able to. Over a time, working job and home, managing both the fronts becomes very difficult. So now she says, come on, I need support, I need hand. But he has learned that this is my role expected. As a man, I must be, I must do what is expected of a masculine kind of a person. So there the differences arise, and of course the extended families, thanks to the extended families, they also support all this. So there are a lot of confusions in the role expectations of both men and women. So it's not because a woman is outspoken or she's rude or she refuses to play her role, but she's identifying new roles for her, which is little difficult for the man to understand because he is taught to the typical traditional male role. So both of them have to, somehow match, come out of that mismatch of role expectation. I think it's coming out also very admirable. There are cases here and there, but by and large, I think both men and women are now understanding that there are new roles for both of them. So as I told you, in IT companies, many men are resigning and taking care of children. And when the children grow up a little, they go back to their careers, which women are also doing. So some men have also started, I don't know, they call them house husbands. I don't know what is it. But the change is very, very gradual. But yes, it is there. So it's unfortunate that divorce rates are increasing. But I wouldn't say it's because of the man or the woman. It's the role expectation.
Yes, ma'am. The another question, ma'am, how to increase economic participation of women in India? Please put your recommendation, ma'am, by Shruti.
Yeah. So yes, what we call as 26 or 27%, I would like to revert that to 70 to 75%. And I think women are contributing in a big way in the paid services as well as unpaid services. But I think what she's trying to say is, can they be brought into the paid services? So that challenge remains, that the government's policies, macro and microeconomic policies, and their labor policies, so that flexible working hours and work from home. There are so many things that are providing crashes in their workplaces, providing safe shelters, sexual harassment, all these kind of labor laws which are so favorable for women to get into, especially in the unorganized, like construction sites. You don't even have a toilet. So some kind of mobile toileting and LCC, all that facilities the government has to open up, so that the women are also able to with ease enter into the labor, organized or formal or informal labor market. I think that that's an macroeconomic policy decisions along with microeconomic policy decisions.
Yeah, Neela,
Another
I would
question,
like
ma'am.
to just add to that,
Yes,
please.
ma'am. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
yeah.
Yeah, one of the most important issue is the for this declining participation of women is the middle class tendency to make the women withdraw from the labor market. I think I have explained this also in my presentation. So that is also in addition to what Dr. Sugantha already mentioned. Of course, the policy and the labor laws and the women participation, their own, etc., required. And above all this, the family should encourage equally the women. Like whenever a man is completing his studies, he is looking for a job, and all sorts of support will be given by the family. But it is not happening for the women, and it is not happening immediately after her education. And in between also, when she is married or even after marriage, she might be doing engaging herself in the labor market. But suddenly, if sufficient income is ensured there in the family, then there is a tendency to ask the female members to withdraw from the labor market and look after the family. I think this should be given up. This is also an important component of increasing the female participation. Thank you. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yes,
Yes,
Neela.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Don't you think there should be an association for women professionals spearheaded by women academicians to address the challenges faced by the women at workplace? This is a question by Jennifer.
Jennifer, congratulations. This is a very important question. If we can't stand for ourselves, who else will stand for ourselves? So there are a lot of AIPA and many other organizations are working. Professional organizations, IT companies have their own women's wing. So there are ROS. Our ROS is also a women's organization. I always say academician with activists have to join together.
Yes, ma'am.
And if we are not going to do it, else is doing it. We have to
Yes,
make
ma'am.
it
Yes,
a
ma'am.
powerful force to reckon with. And the government and the NGOs and the community at large will have to accept. Now, there is one organization called, I mean, this is a little extended, but I want to talk about this. I was impressed. Gulabi Gang. Okay, what is
Okay.
Gulabi Gang? If somebody is harassing, raping, or molesting women, it is in North India. These women in pink, Gulabi is pink. Gulabi Gang, what they will do, they'll wear the pink. All a big gang of women they'll go to that man, hit him left and right in the street, and come away. This is Gulabi Gang has become a big movement. I'm not suggesting it's the right thing, but society in that area, in that region, they are now afraid of this Gulabi Gang. If somebody is, trying to play fool with any girl, he will be, taken to task. So like this, This is not a good example, I believe, but nevertheless, I'm saying women can be a force to reckon with.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. There should be collective force, as you
Yeah,
mentioned.
yeah.
Okay.
So
I have
women's organization have to strengthen themselves. There are a lot of men who will support, but we have to stand for ourselves.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. True, true, true.
Yeah.
I think Jennifer must be knowing about the Women Entrepreneurs Association of Tamil Nadu, wherein
Okay.
as academician we have initiated that and spearheading the grassroots women to come and take up entrepreneurial opportunities, and it is really making them empowered on the one hand and also recognize their own
Oh,
agency.
okay.
It is our responsibility to convert our research findings into
True, true.
the
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
action research. Yeah.
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
to have a
There is another
holistic.
important question you have to answer, Suganta. I think
Yeah.
Neela will read. That is about is reservation. It's very important question. Reservation be for I mean only the women should contest only for reserved, or they can be open also. So you please answer that.
Reservation is very important at this stage because, as Mani said, equality, equity, unless we bring that, we need reservations. But I think our mindset should also change. We have to go into we have to look at men as competing groups. We are still saying, oh, we are the weaker sex and we need support. So until the government, the organizations, the community at large, civil society start looking at men and women as competing groups, imbibe that idea that they are competing groups, they will, because why this they're not equally efficient. So this is a question to women being not equally efficient. Sometimes women are much more efficient than men. You see, sir was saying, Dr. Gopal Singh sir was saying that as far as financial management is concerned, women are very good. But where are the women in the banks or in the financial institutions or in the non-banking financial institutions? Where are the women? In the finance department, where are the women? So we have to have some kind of reservations until this evolution process brings a change. Now in many private companies, they are inviting women into important positions, be it in terms of financial, be it in terms of construction, even if it is house construction, engineers they need. So we need women in the sense in every area. There was this 20 women who developed a model of car. You know that the car that we are driving is very most suitable for men to sit, the bucket car and all that, the brakes, the gear and all that, it's not, but we kind of got ourselves accustomed to that system of car. So these women, they thought it out and they built a car which is more suitable for whether we are wearing sari or whether we are wearing skirts, whether it was in Great Britain or in whatever. So these 20 women joined together and did it. They were called up and they were given awards. They were appreciated in many stages and all that. But my dear friends, not one car company wanted to buy that model. They were awarded, they were appreciated, they were given a lot of acclaim, but no car company wanted. So that is it. See how from a bike, scooty has come. Now the scooty companies have acknowledged that women are going to drive two-wheelers and we need to design two-wheelers which women can drive. So they have come down. Similarly, the car also should happen like so. We have to evolve that, whether it is in governance, whether it is in politics, whether it is in companies. Okay. So this push as women's organization, we need to do it. We can't wait for somebody to always call us. So I think reservations are important. But
I just add the two evidences I think I have already shared. One is that the 14% now parliamentarian. It is not by
Yeah.
reservation. I think the question, person who asked this question must understand. So similarly, in the local body also, it is not just 33%, it is 40%, 50% women. Without, I mean, if it is only by quota, then it would have confined only to 33%. So you need to understand that the women are started accepted by the public, by people as leaders on the one hand, and of course, they have come without reservation and occupied in the recent elections in the parliament 14%. This is not a joke. Though, of course, there are issues that which background they are drawn from, whether they have had the political background already, all these are there. And our own Tamil Nadu stands as an example for that. But still, they are making it up. That is to be, and therefore, as Madam already claimed that parties must be gender sensitive enough to accommodate first 33% women to be there in their governance, which is not, which is missing really.
I
I
want
think
to add a
those,
note of caution
Neela,
here.
there
This year
are
we had the Women
right.
Economic Forum, not Indian, International Women Economic Forum in Madurai. So I was also invited to give a talk and all that. So when I went there, it was in Pasmalay Taj. So when we went there, I was like totally taken aback. What I observed was all I want to add, all the women who were there, international as well as national, many came from Mumbai, Delhi, and so many other places. All of them were like so elitist. I was like, I was like a fish out of water, because it was like a Bollywood meeting. It was like thrilling, and everything was so different. And oh, if this is going to be, then this is that's also a complaint against giving reservation for women in parliament. It'll be again the elitist women, or the daughter of so and so, son of so. It's not going to be the real representation of women. So we need, this is a note of caution for all of us when we are moving ahead. It should not become again an elitist group where only the elite women are in the fore. They were always in the fore, So like Jawaharlal Nehru is, I'm not mentioning anybody, but then that family politics where they're already into the field. But then we need many more others from diverse fields. So that's a note of caution when we talk about reservations for women. Neela?
Yes, ma'am. Manimekle, ma'am.
Close because already time, Neela, because
Yes,
it is
ma'am.
recording will be difficult for you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your wonderful session on gender and economics. Yes, ma'am. Of course, economics is the new way of thinking. Due to this pandemic time, we can expect the changes in our economic planning and economic policies and environment and the economic systems. Economic growth without social progress leads the great majority of people in poverty. There can be economy only where there is efficiency. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your thought-provoking session. May I now call upon Dr. S. Shubha, Assistant Professor, Department of Women's Studies, Badass University, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to all. On behalf of organizers and webinar participants, I thank Professor Sugantha Ramamurthy to deliver the very informative session lecture on the gender and economics, particularly about how the gender is connected with the economic development process and its interconnections, like different sectoral connections of macro and micro level things. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much, and also very, very elaborately explain the queries raised by the participants. Thank you so much, madam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all. I had a great time interacting with all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sugantha, for that. Everyone enjoyed, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you all. Meet you all tomorrow. Thank you.